This is the show that values time and puts God first. Let's get into it. So I said this last week, but I don't think I got the message across correctly. And there was a quote that specifically, when I was talking about the product of the NBA, and there was a quote that Adam Silver used that really was the one that made me go, okay, Adam, let's look at this. Adam said, he was on doing an interview, and he said he wants the NBA Finals to feel like the Super Bowl, where the Super Bowl, we all know, is this massive event that it doesn't matter if your finals teams or your Super Bowl teams are teams you root for. Everybody watches it. And people that don't watch football watch the Super Bowl. It is the biggest TV event in America, and it's not particularly close. Right? And Adam says, that's my dream, is I want the NBA Finals to feel like the Super Bowl. Okay. I get it. I don't know if it's realistic at this point, but I get it. And when I was talking about the product they put on the floor, and right now we'll start with the most controversial part of the product, which is all of the foul baiting, right? Let's take, SGA is obviously at the forefront, but as I was talking to Tony yesterday, he says, if you're going to say that about SGA, you have to keep that same kind of energy for players like Jalen Brunson, etc. And obviously prime James Harden, who was probably the worst of offender of all. And I said, you know what? You're right. So I'm going to use SGA's name in reference a lot here, but this applies to anyone with this kind of play style and why this is not a good product or a good source for the NBA. First, yes, the Super Bowl is exclusive to who you like as a team. Because by the time we get to the Super Bowl, you normally are watching teams that play football very, 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 very well. And that is what helps, because that product of football is something that we can all enjoy and go, damn, I wish my team could do that. So there's a little bit of envy that works in the Super Bowl's favor. These teams are so good, man, I wish my team was like that. I don't think anybody actively watching goes, man, I wish my team was like the Oklahoma City Thunder. And that's unfortunate, because the Thunder, as I said last week, despite Thunder fans wanting to go say mean things to me on the internet, the Thunder have done a lot correct. The Knicks have done a lot correct. Another team that has that style of player. In the Knicks case, they have drafted well enough to get trade assets to put together this core group of guys who played together in college, plus just 5 high-quality starters, right? And it didn't feel unfair because it wasn't, this wasn't a big 3 scenario where they were bringing in superstars. They just had 5 really quality NBA players. The Thunder did the process correctly. The Thunder tanked for several years, ended up trading for SGA, and said, we're just going to put you on a bunch of first-round draft picks, and now look at what they've got. Dort, both Williams, Chet Holmgren, obviously. SGA now is in his MVP form, which I've said multiple times he still deserved it. It's a regular season award. What they did in the regular season was historically dominant, right? So, but no one's looking at the Thunder or looking at the Knicks and be like, man, I wish that was my team. There was an envy when you saw, some of those Kobe Laker teams, whether it was him and Powell or him and Shaq. There was some envy when you saw how well the Spurs played. You might not have loved their play style. I know their ratings weren't great, but seeing Duncan, Ginobili, Parker, and then later Kawhi. And in the NFL, that's even put more on display because it's usually the best quarterbacks, usually some of the best coaches, and because of the scarcity of those two positions, it's like, man, I wish that was my team. I wish they had that guy as their quarterback. I wish they had that guy as their head coach. So the product doesn't even truly inspire envy like that out of other fans. Let's go with the second thing, and I feel like this has hurt. It's weird. Analytics are used in all 3 sports, and probably even hockey, but I don't know hockey well enough. When we talk about analytics in the NFL, when we talk about analytics in baseball, when we talk about analytics in basketball, even though they're used in all 3, I feel like the impact is not anywhere near the same. The NFL, we know they're all using analytics and all these different metrics, but the core of the game is still physicality, good quarterback play, good coaching. You don't really feel that impact of analytics. Baseball swung so far the other way where because of the Tampa Bay Rays and Joe Madden, all these defensive shifts and what they were doing analytically, baseball actually said, hey, you're hurting our product because you're making the game, like you have figured it out. They basically waved the white flag and said, look, you figured this out. You have shown teams how to prevent runs at such a rate. It is a bad product for the viewing experience and the viewing audience. And they said, hey, we're going to take that away. And I get it. I was upset in the beginning because it felt like, this small market team that finally cracked the code. And it was like, well, now you can't do it. Right? In the NBA, analytics, what's the real representation of it, are people. And this is insane to me. Analytics is almost a brand of people, and I say this with some amount of respect, a sports nerd. Now, this is from someone who's an actual nerd, so I'm not trying to use the term nerd offensively here. I just want to get the point across. It is almost represented by these group of people who have spent the last 10 years going, well, actually, the statistics say this. The numbers say this. Why do you watch the game then? If all you want to do is throw out numbers, why do you watch the game? Even one of the most glaring examples of analytics in a sport being represented by a person is Brian Kenny. Shout out to him. Brian Kenny he took a leap of faith in his career when he left ESPN to work for MLB Network, and he was the numbers guy. And that used to drive people crazy. And it felt like, and myself included when he first made the switch, it felt like for that first year of, well, are you watching the games or are you just reading off a stat sheet? Are you just reading off a scoreboard or a player's card? Now, Brian Kenny held his ground. Him and I forget the guy who wrote the book. I apologize, I'm blanking on his name. I know it starts with James. He wrote the book that started the analytic trend in baseball. But Brian Kenny stood his ground and continued to push back and define and showed and had proof that he was really watching these games and the numbers played out as they were. In the NBA, the analytic fans, the analytic guys, the stat nerds who just want to throw out number after number after number, you guys seem to be the most clueless when it comes to watching the game experience. It should not be insulting to say SGA is a foul merchant or SGA manipulates the whistle. First off, I'll give this to you guys, to the stat people out there. Yes, a lot of all-time greats have controlled the whistle. Okay. So if that was true, me saying SGA is controlling the whistle, being a foul merchant, wouldn't come off as such a negative to you. But it does, and that's because you know why. Watch the game. Just because you put up a graphic that says, well, he only shot 11 free throws and his team won by 15 points. So even if you removed all the free throws, his team would still win. Okay. This is how we're going to reduce sports conversations. Okay. And here's the other one. SGA has only attempted X amount of free throws this postseason. And that is I think the number at the time I saw it was the 406th most all time. Okay. Does that 406th most all time take into consideration how many games they played? Because the Thunder swept their first round opponent. Yes, they went 7 games, but 2 of the games they blew out Denver, so she didn't play the whole game. Did it take into consideration that the style in which he did it, which is the biggest, I don't know if it's just lost to people that want to read off numbers. There is a skill in drawing fouls. I 1000% agree with that. And that has been a part of NBA basketball since, go all the way back to, you could probably find Bill Russell and Bob Cousy doing it. There is a skill to controlling the whistle. There is a skill to drawing fouls, getting guys out of place. There's literally a rip-through move that has been taught to everyone who's played the game of basketball. And it is, but in essence, a foul move. If you are so close to me, where my space is inhibited, that I can just rip through, and if you're not in technical defense position, it's a foul. So that's taught to everybody. That is drastically different stylistically and the product on the court than SGA or Brunson or Harden in his prime, dribbling the ball, putting his head down, pushing the contact into the defender, and then flailing, flopping, making these really stupid faces and then having to have stat nerds go on and defend them online. The game can't look different in this regard. I talked about the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl feels like the epitome of football in a lot of years, on a lot of matchups. Like, these teams are so good at it. I remember the Chiefs-Niners. They were just better than everybody, just flat out. Mahomes, Kelsey, all the guys on San Francisco, Chris Jones, Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan, they just looked better at it, right? And they weren't benefiting off of something. They were just better. That Chiefs team that played the Niners in both those Super Bowls looked different than the Chiefs team that we just got this year, which had, guess what, a favorable whistle. You see the difference, how it looks. And if it wasn't such a, and here's the thing, refs, the refs shouldn't have an agenda. This should not be, oh, we want the entire playoffs to be physical, or we want the entire regular season to be soft. Just call the game. Because all fans really want, and this is the other big part of this product thing, we want consistency. We want to know we're not going to understand the X's and O's. We're not going to stand the super intricate parts of basketball. We're not going to understand what some of these coaches or really intelligent players are thinking of. But the stuff that is easy to communicate to us, that allows us to enjoy the game, that allows us to be a part of the experience, make it look consistent so we at least know what the hell is going on, or at least to the most of our ability. When you watch an OKC game and you see SGA flopping around and get calls that are like, huh? And then you watch the Thunder play defense and you see them borderline mug people and Lou Dort play football. And I've said this really quick. I said this on group chat yesterday, and I'll say it here now. The Thunder are probably the best defensive team, this Thunder team, since the Detroit Pistons with Chauncey Billups. When they had Chauncey, Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace, like that team and this team, two of the best defensive teams we've seen this century. But it shouldn't look so drastically different what they're allowed to do on offense versus what they're allowed to do on defense versus how you have to defend them. And because of this style changeup, after Shea has already drawn a handful of fouls and you put guys in this position where it's like, okay, I can't touch him, he's walking into 17-footers and he's an elite NBA player, so of course he's going to hit them. So to the point of these stat guys who just want to say, oh, well, the free throws don't matter because the final score, they won by more than he shot free throws. That style of play dictated how you're allowed to play defense on him, and it restricts the momentum of what anyone is allowed to do. So no, it's not just a matter of he took 10 free throws, they win by 12, 11 free throws, they win by 13. It changes the entire discourse of the game. Notice, they weren't given, and I get it, home and away, there's always going to be some of that stuff. He's not getting those same kind of calls in Minnesota. Now, obviously, they're going to play today, but they got blown out by 40, and Shea wasn't allowed to just flop around. Totally changes the game. You're playing an entirely different sport. And let me address this last, and this is a little bit of team bias, but it's the best example I can think of. I'll give some love to Oklahoma City here. I think what Oklahoma City did against Jokic was smart. I think putting Caruso on Jokic, this is just one of those forever basketball things, even though it's probably also unfair. Putting Caruso on Jokic, I thought was really smart because little guys will always be able to foul bigger guys, and you're not going to call as many of them or as often. That's just a fact of life, right? Like if a kid hits you, you're not going to evaluate it the same as a adult hitting you. And not to call anybody in the NBA kids, but there's a big size difference between Alex Caruso and Nikola Jokic, right? So he's able to be more physical. He is able to be a little more aggressive. That I'm okay with. The other argument, though, that people have been saying is that, well, Shea drives the most. And that's why he gets the most free throws. Can I introduce you to Zion Williamson, who, for whatever reason, they don't like to call fouls for? Is it because he's too strong? Is it because he doesn't flop? What is it? I watched a series where, again, no one watches Pelicans games besides me, and I get that. But if you really want to know what the OKC experience looks like, go watch some Pelicans games. Because this is how I feel like the Pelicans whistle is almost every single game. When they attempt to play physical, it's fouls. But other teams are allowed to play physical with them. And I don't know if this is because of Zion or because they had Jonas, who's also one of the strongest guys in the league. They had Steven Adams before him. Drew Holiday, Herb Jones. Like, it's insane. And when it comes to the foul part on defense, say, oh, it's because they're great defenders. Herb Jones was the only guard to make first-team All-NBA last year. Herb Jones is one of the best, in my opinion, the best. Thompson and Lu Dort and these guys right now. Herb Jones is out this season. Herb Jones is the best perimeter defender in the game of basketball. And he does not get a whistle on defense that would suggest that. But Zion drives night in, night out, game in, game out, and does not get near the amount of calls or near the same style of whistle that SGA does. Why? Because he would score 40 points a game. He would score 40 points a game. And keep it on this and say, well, Zion's just bigger and stronger. Zion and SGA are basically the same height. Now, they have way different body types, but they're basically the same height. So, Adam Silver, if you want the NBA to get to a point where it could be like the Super Bowl, start addressing some of these. Hey, we're just not calling this foul anymore. Sorry, guys. If you're going to, which you claimed you were doing it on people that flopped the three-point line, and we've seen a decrease in that. But this style of just put your head down, run to the basket, fall over, let them fall. Because you stop rewarding them, they'll stop doing it. These guys aren't dumb. If they stop getting rewarded free throws and points and their scoring averages and their percentages go down, notice almost everybody in the playoffs, scoring average has gone down. They're more physical. They're allowing teams to play defense. Guess whose scoring average hasn't dropped? The two guys who they're allowing to still play this funny style of run, put your head down, trip, fall. And it just looks different, and fans can see that, and players can see that. Because, two other guys who averages actually went up. Go look at Jokic and Giannis' numbers. I know Giannis got smoked by the Pacers, and they just got blown out. But go look at what Giannis did. Go look at what Jokic did. That was, you can appreciate that greatness. That's not trying to control the whistle or flop all over the place. So if you want this product to eventually one day get to the level where the NFL has it, where these are events, not just watch your favorite team in the playoffs, stop encouraging some of this crap. And to the stat guys, watch a game. Don't just read off a bunch of box scores and tell me Colin Cowherd has a phrase, man-analytics over analytics. And I like analytics. I like analytics on 3 sports. I'm all for people getting smarter, learning creative things. But make it actually smart. Don't make it an actual analytic or an actual sign of your intellect. Don't make it an acting class. I mean, if you want to be a part of one of the coolest, most unique communities, don't forget to like and subscribe.